You are looking at the largest country on the planet. But be careful, don't let this landmass, equivalent to the entire South American continent, deceive your eyes. The most fascinating truth doesn't lie here. Spanning across 11 vast time zones, brushing past countless neighboring countries, the weakness, and also the most bizarre weapon of the Russian bear, is hiding at the far end of Western Europe, a tiny red dot, and completely isolated. Welcome to Kaliningrad, the land of nearly 1 million Russians, yet not sharing a single centimeter with the motherland. It stands alone, suffocated within the tight encirclement of Lithuania, Latvia, Belarus, and the entire European Union. Do the people here want to go home? Traveling by land is an exhausting diplomatic puzzle, and by sea or air, they have to squeeze through the Baltic Sea, detouring all the way to the Gulf of Finland just to reach St. Petersburg. But don't pity that isolation just yet. Sitting right at the throat of Europe, this is Russia's only warm water, ice-free port on the Baltic. And naturally, it is the lair of the infamous Baltic Fleet. In 2015, when the West cast its net of sanctions, the Russian bear immediately retaliated with arrows, the Iskandar missiles. From these deadly coordinates, Berlin, Warsaw, or Copenhagen all sit squarely in the crosshairs. NATO's true nightmare lies exactly here, the Suwałki Gap, a fragile strip of land only 65 kilometers wide. If the geopolitical chessboard flips, it only takes one swing of Russia's arm from Kaliningrad for the NATO bloc to be instantly sliced in half. The 3 Baltic states would be completely isolated in despair, left alone to face the colossal military pressure bearing down from Mother Russia. The sea routes would share the same fate. Missiles and warships here are more than capable of strangling all supply lines. A lone fortress, yet powerful enough to hold all of Europe hostage. So why does this piece of land, buried deep in the heart of Europe, belong to Russia? You know what? It once didn't have a single Russian soul. For 684 years, this place was the proud heart of the Germans. A majestic Königsberg, forged by the swords of the Teutonic Knights, the glorious capital of the Kingdom of Prussia. But the wheel of history is always cruel. At the end of World War II, as Nazi Germany crumbled in dying embers, millions of Soviet Red Army soldiers flooded the borders. The heart of Germany began to bleed. Over 2 million Germans fled in panic. Above, a firestorm rained down from British planes. Below, Soviet tanks roared as they advanced. That desperate exodus permanently turned the once prosperous Königsberg into ashes. The victor reserves the right to redraw the map. Territories were torn apart, borders redrawn. The most valuable core of East Prussia was sliced off and thrown onto the Soviet map. The name Königsberg was completely erased, and Kaliningrad officially rose from the ashes of the defeated. The last remaining Germans were ruthlessly expelled. Russians and Ukrainians flooded in to fill the void. From a foreign Western land, Kaliningrad transformed into the internal flesh and blood of the Soviet Union, planting a dagger eternally into the heart of Europe, one that no one could ever pull out. Stalin wasn't crazy to tightly hold onto this land as Russia's private asset. He knew this was a precious warm water port, the perfect springboard for the Soviet Navy to extend its octopus tentacles across the entire Baltic Sea, dominating the Western theater. But ironically, his successor later generously wanted to gift Kaliningrad to Lithuania. And guess what? Lithuania flat out refused. Their leaders were too smart to accept this poisoned apple, bringing millions of blatant Russians onto their own soil. That was a death sentence for their future that Lithuania dared not gamble on. So, throughout the Cold War, Kaliningrad was locked up tight, a military fortress with no way in and no way out. The last German legacies were smashed, replaced by grim, cold, grey Soviet concrete blocks. Then the 1991 earthquake struck. The Soviet Union collapsed. Germany of Kaliningrad suddenly became an orphaned island drifting amidst a sea of newly independent nations. At this moment, all of Europe held its breath. The Iron Lady Thatcher and the French president were frantic. Would Germany demand its ancestral land back? But no. Germany hastily signed a series of treaties, even amending national laws to completely disown any right of inheritance. Why? Because the cost to absorb and assimilate millions of Russians was a massive mess no one wanted to touch. Left behind, Kaliningrad struggled to stay afloat. Russia tried to magically turn it into a special economic zone, pumping in a barrage of incentives to woo Europe, dreaming of a prosperous trading port spanning the Baltic. But that illusion was crushed. Poland and Lithuania successively joined NATO. The Ring of Steel tightened, and after the 2014 Crimea shock, ruthless sanctions crashed down, turning this special zone into a cramped cage. Citizens' incomes plummeted, exhausted right in the heart of Europe. The economy withered, but did the Kremlin care? Not at all, because the true value of Kaliningrad never lay in a few lonely rubles. Economic benefit is just the tip of the iceberg. It is a razor-sharp sword resting right at NATO's throat. Even as Sweden and Finland turned the Baltic into a western lake, Kaliningrad sits proudly there. A thorny outpost, an interception fortress ready to strangle the throats of its neighbors. Whether as the Königsberg of the past or the Kaliningrad of the present, it was born to be the fatal pressure point of the entire European continent.